For 19 years, the Winnipeg Goldeyes were blessed to have Paul Edmonds do our radio broadcast. And in all that time, he only missed one game, and that was for the birth of his son, Mark. And Mark's here today. That's a pretty good reason, Mark. Now, after Paul's first series on air, he came into my office and he was asking me, so how do you think I did? And I said, you were great. But there were times when it sounded a little more like a hockey broadcast than our baseball broadcast. So maybe you could just tone it down a little. Well, that's kind of funny now if you know what Paul Edmonds does. You know, I loved it when the team went on the road because I wasn't as busy, and whatever I was doing, I could turn on the radio and listen to Paul describe the game. And he had this uncanny ability to bring you right inside the ballpark, even though you weren't physically there. That was just one of his gifts. And he had these phenomenal sayings that he came up with over the years. And I'm just going to tell you an imitation of my favorite one. When he would say, look up, pucker up, and kiss it goodbye. My favorite home run call I've ever heard on the radio, and that was Paul. But he's not standing here tonight just because he's a phenomenal broadcaster. Paul also dedicated himself to this job and to promote amateur baseball. He emceed many events for them, and he brought amateur baseball onto the Goldeyes broadcast. And even if he had to go and dig the information out, he stayed at it because he believed that was part of his mandate, and I think baseball in Manitoba is better for it. You know, the Goldeyes are the equivalent of a minor league baseball team. But I always knew we had a major league talent in the broadcast booth. And now that Paul is the radio voice of the Winnipeg Jets, I think that's been proven to be true. So let me just tell you, this is a great guy, and I am proud to call him my friend. Please help me welcome into the Baseball Hall of Fame, Mr. Paul Edmonds.
You got all night.
I find it difficult to talk about myself when you've spent a career talking about other people. I would first like to thank everyone for attending tonight. It's a special evening, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, its committee of volunteers and administrators. I'd also like to personally congratulate the other individuals and teams inducted tonight, many of which had a direct impact on the game, thus making the game of baseball stronger in our province and better for your efforts. As for myself, I got paid to talk about baseball for 20 years. And as you've probably heard many, many times, no one gets involved in a game or a sport with a vision of getting into the Hall of Fame. And that's very much true for myself. In fact, I got into baseball for two reasons. One, I love the game, and two, it was a means of earning a living. In the early 1990s, I was broadcasting games for the Regina Pats hockey team in the Western Hockey League. I was paid per game, and each summer the team would cut me loose. So in order to further involve my employment and stay gainfully employed, I had heard about an opportunity in Lethbridge, Alberta with the Lethbridge Mounties of the Pioneer Baseball League I had a friend that kind of had a bit of an in. He said, you should apply for this job. So I did, with a hockey tape. I had zero baseball broadcasting experience. I got the job. It was a very adventurous summer, traveling Montana, Utah, Idaho. But the opportunity also put me in a position to return home to Winnipeg when Sam Cates and Peter Young hired me as one of the Gold Eyes radio broadcasters in December of 1994, where I then spent 19 years. Speaking of Peter Young, it was that first year that we shared the broadcasting duties in 1995 together before he moved back to television and I assumed the sole role of the team's play-by-play radio voice there and after. Perhaps one of the best and clean stories that I can share with you along the way was midway through that summer in Thunder Bay, Ontario. The Gold Eyes were playing the now defunct Whiskey Jacks in the Northern League. Former Toronto Blue Jays player Doug Alt was the manager, and he had a right-hander on the mound named Jim Boynowitz, who was throwing an absolute gem that night at Port Arthur Stadium. As the game got into the late stages, Alt didn't want to pull Boynowitz from the game, but had a decision to make as the Gold Eyes were sending a left-handed batter to the plate. So Alt came to the mound and brought a lefty into the game from the bullpen. But instead of pulling Boynowitz out of the game, he removed the first baseman and placed Boynowitz at that position for the at-bat. When the at-bat between the two lefties was over, Alt came back to the mound and switched Boynowitz back to pitcher and moved the lefty pitcher to first base. At this point, on air, Peter Young looked at me and said, "Paul, I have now seen everything. Jim Boynowitz has just relieved himself on the mound." That story, in essence, epitomizes my tremendously rewarding career in baseball. It was fun, it was full of education, competitiveness, professionalism, humor, and entertainment. But what I truly took from the game and the 20 years I spent in it was the friendships, relationships, and camaraderie with the people that I still have contact with today. People like Scott Nealis, Donnie Smith, Troy and Blaine Fortin were just some of the people that I've met through the game and stayed in touch with through the Gold Eyes days and via the game of baseball today. Moreover, my career provided the fortune of working with Hal Lanier for 10 years, standing beside a former Major League manager every day around the batting cage and having the ability to talk to him one-on-one in pregame radio interviews was absolutely invaluable in teaching me more about the game than I could ever describe to you here tonight. And through Hal, I met Whitey Herzog at an all-star game the Gold Eyes hosted in 2001, which was an honor in and of itself. And over my career, I crossed paths with former major leaguers Pete Rose, Jack Morris, Darryl Strawberry, J.D. Drew. As you might expect, there were a lot of great memories during that time, and over my run behind the microphone for the Gold Eyes, the team advanced to 6 finals, including 3 rounds in 1999, 2001, and 2002, and eventually won a championship in 2012, which is likely my most memorable moment with the franchise. As a side note, over that time, as John mentioned, I missed 1 game and called over 2,000. I also have a great association with current Gold Eyes manager Rick Forney, who I first met when he was a pitcher with the team back in 1997, and someone I still consider a good friend. Rick and I always shared many great laughs over the years, including the time I asked about a player's injury. And stealing a line from hockey playoff parlance, I said, "Rick, is it an upper body or a lower body problem?" Rick deadpanned, he said, "Well, Paul, it depends whether he's standing up or bending over." Growing up, I loved the game of baseball. I played it as a kid, was excited to watch it on TV when available, usually on Saturday afternoons or during World Series time back in the 1970s and early 80s. But my aspirations and dreams of reaching the big leagues never really developed until I was working in the game. Of course, that never transpired for various reasons. But looking back, especially after the Goldeyes moved to downtown Winnipeg, with the teams they had and the crowd they drew for all of my career, I was in the big leagues. At least that's the way myself, those that I worked with, and those that supported the team treated it. Today I find great reward and excitement in the game as I now coach. And over the past 6 summers, since moving to the Winnipeg Jets radio job, I've had the absolute pleasure and appreciation to coach both my sons in the game. Mark for 2 years, and now Nolan for the last 4. And our daughter's hinted that she wants to play girls softball, so I would approve of that as well if she wants to next year. So, some special thank yous to John Hindle, who introduced me tonight, my first general manager with the Goldeyes. Thank you for showing me patience, John, professionalism, educating me about the game and the business of baseball, letting me grow within certain parameters. You started as my boss, you became my friend. To Sam Cates, thank you for providing the forum for many of us to work in baseball, and thank you for the chance and opportunity to do so for 19 years. To Andrew Collier, current general manager of the Goldeyes, you, like John, have become a great friend, and your leadership and guidance was constantly on display and easy to emulate. To the Winnipeg Goldeyes for 19 rewarding, memorable, and inspiring years, the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame Board, gentlemen like Gladwin Scott, Jack Pelham, Joe Witcher, the curator of the museum, to name a few. What you've done for baseball administratively is immeasurable and greatly enriched the sport in our province. I'd like to recognize some friends I have here tonight from Morden via Darlingford, Tom and Faye Carruthers. Thank you for taking the time to attend tonight. To my parents, my Uncle Dave, my Aunt Judy, my mother-in-law, thank you for support through my career, as well as tonight. To my wife Tanis, kids Mark, Jamie, and Nolan, all of which were able to hear me at some point call baseball on the radio. This acknowledgement tonight is as much for you as it is for me. Because I missed a lot of birthdays, family reunions, just things when you're on the road, doing baseball for 4.5 months every summer. So you, as a family, you share in this more than you know. In closing, I would like to share with all of you an axiom that I truly believe and share often with people when I'm asked to speak. In life, it is not what you choose, but what chooses you. Baseball chose me for 20 years. I'm thankful it did. I'm extremely humbled by this acknowledgement. Congratulations again to all the other teams and individuals and inductees tonight. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.